while your day is winding down. They're just getting started. This is South Coast Tonight with Chris McCarthy and Marcus Farrow. They've got you covered on all the news of the day, from local issues to politics on both sides of the aisle. This is the place where the movers and shakers come to be heard, to listen, and where they're held accountable. This is South Coast Tonight on WBSM.
Welcome back to South Coast Tonight. I'm Marcus Farrow. 508-996-0500 is how you can join me this evening. We'll also take your app chat messages on the WBSM app. Open topics for the rest of the program. We actually have some app chat messages. I've been asking everybody because it's May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. It's a celebration of Star Wars. I've asked everybody what their favorite movie or just thing about Star Wars is in general. And I asked my guest, Bristol County Sheriff Paul Heroux, earlier. He had said his favorite was Return of the Jedi. Most of the app chatters have said Empire Strikes Back. Somebody asked me what the best lightsaber battle is from any of the 9 movies. I said the lightsaber battle in the first one, episode 1, where you had the dual wielding lightsaber versus the other two of the Darth Maul versus the other 2 Jedi. That one's really well choreographed, and it was something that at the time was pretty new in terms of Star Wars, the cinematic experience. So it was pretty cool. I thought that was the best one. Even if the movie wasn't all that great, and I'm not a fan of the movie. It's not great. I don't think it's as bad as it's been remembered, but it's still not the strongest movie. But I said my favorite Star Wars movie is Rogue One. We've got some app chats here. We've got, from a New Bedford resident, we have someone messaging telling me A New Hope, which is the very first Star Wars movie in 1976. Classic. It's the first movie. It completely changed cinema forever. Started this sort of cultural phenomenon that is Star Wars. And, I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all. I think that's a good choice. I got another message from somebody telling me their favorite is episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, right? Which is the one in which Anakin fully turns to the dark side and becomes Darth Vader. Spoiler alert, right? He becomes Darth Vader at the end of the movie. That's the best one out of the prequels by far. It's pretty good. That one's pretty good. I think that if the other 2 were more like that, the prequels would be remembered more fondly. But that one was great. That is one of my favorites as well. It's a great movie. Some people have that as their favorite. Episode 3, definitely the strongest one in the prequels. I like it better than the very last movie that came out, Rise of Skywalker. Rise of Skywalker I hated it. It wasn't the worst, but I hated it for a few reasons that I could get into if somebody wanted to ask me. But 508-996-0500 is how you can get on the program. We'll also take your messages on the WBSM app. Who's your favorite character? Darth Vader is my favorite character, but Han Solo's a very close second. Han Solo's really, he's great. He's so good. Never tell me the odds, right? Or when Leia says to him when he's about to get frozen for Boba Fett, she's like, "I love you," and he goes, "I know." He's the best. He's my favorite. Other than Darth Vader, he's my second favorite, I think, in the entire IP. I also like The Mandalorian, the new TV show that came out. Another app chat message from somebody said the sequel trilogy sucked. I disagree. I think the first two were actually pretty damn good. I thought they were really good. They were safe. The first one was very, very, very safe. And of course, because it's Disney, it's the first release of the new property since, in 20 years. Of course, it's going to be safe. Well, actually, at the time, 10 years. Of course, it's going to be safe. And, they want to just, they're trying to sell toys, right? That's ultimately when you're making movies, especially movies like Star Wars or any superhero movies, like any sort of IP like that in the sci-fi / superhero kind of comic book genre. The primary goal in Disney movies in general, the primary goal is to sell toys and merchandise. That's actually where they make all the money. They don't necessarily, they make money in the movie production, but they make all of the money. They get their highest revenue in the merchandise. So whenever you see like a cute little character and all that, that's a toy. They're like, okay, who can we make into a nice toy that kids will want to get? And that's usually why, because they make all their money in the merchandising. In fact, actually, interesting little thing. Before we get into some real policy stuff, I just want to talk a little bit about this. When Marvel agreed with Sony to do a Spider-Man movie, Sony made all the money from the movie, right? The actual ticket sales. But Marvel, which is Disney, had said they want all the revenue from the merchandise, right? The toys and the book bags and the shirts and the hats and the whatever, the cups, right? And that's just, they made a lot more money, right? That's where all the money really is made. So a little interesting factoid. A lot of these, when they're making these movies, they do keep in mind, what their merchandising sales are going to be like, because that's where they make a great deal of profit. 508-996-0500 is how you can get in the program, asking people what their favorite Star Wars movie is, but also do want to talk about some real stuff. That is real, actually. It's real and important, and it's important to a lot of people. It's important to me. I love Star Wars. And, maybe I'll start a Star Wars podcast where I can talk more about this to an audience that may be more receptive to it. But for now, this is a local talk radio. I mean, anybody has anything about Star Wars, please call. I like that's a floating topic. Send us an app chat message too at 508-996-0500. That's how you can get in the program, or send us an app chat message on the WBSM app. We got a few messages about Star Wars, and no calls, but messages. So if you want to call in about Star Wars, you can. I would really appreciate it. But we'll talk about some real stuff. So we talked a little bit about, I mentioned briefly the State of the City address. We had New Bedford. We had New Bedford City Councilor Sean Oliver on last night, actually, to react to it. The new Ward 3 City Councilor. He's very new to the City Council. Was elected in end of February. So this is his first State of the City address. So he got to, just wanted to react to it. I've said this before. The State of the City in New Bedford is different from all the other cities like Fall River. And, I saw one in like Amesbury, actually. They're more low-key, very low-key. A lot of them in this situation is usually just the mayor addressing either like a small little crowd or addressing the city council and the council chambers, right? Kind of like a State of the Union, which has a little bit more pageantry. But it's usually fairly low-key. Like, it's broadcasted, it's covered, but it's not like New Bedford. New Bedford, there is pageantry. There's a dinner, or not dinner, there's a lunch. There's, a lot of who's who, a lot of, as Sean said, the movers and shakers in local policy, right? Elected officials. There's 2 members of state delegation there. I saw Bristol County DA Tom Quinn. He was there. Obviously, police chief, fire chief. There was a lot of people. The city council, school committee, a lot of people there. A lot of movers and shakers. And it's it's a nice event. There's tablecloths, right, and all of that. And it's pretty well covered. I like that. I think it adds. I think he said it's this. I think Mayor Mitchell might have said. Somebody said it. It's the second biggest State of the City address, like in terms of its event in the in the Commonwealth, I think the first is obviously Boston. Obviously, with any state of this, whatever state of the city, state of the union, state of the state addresses, a lot of that is focused on. A lot of that is usually focused on like, hey, listen, this is all the stuff that we're doing really well. This is all the stuff we're improving on. Usually like, since this day, usually, it's by the executive elected official who's obviously front and center with a lot of the good things and bad things a particular city or town or state are facing. So the format is usually, hey, this is where we're at before. This is where we're headed now. This is the things that have been done under my leadership that are good, right? Positive things that are done under, some positive things that I've done. And these are the things that we should work on. And these are the things I'm calling on Congress or the state legislature or the city council to work with me on. These are the things I'm calling on so-and-so to do so we can work on this issue. Obviously, housing's brought up. Housing was a big part of the conversation. Offshore wind, he commended Maura Healey for her investments in the offshore wind industry and, sort of making New Bedford a big part of her offshore wind plan. One of the big announcements he had in the State of the City address was the 311, which is basically a constituent services phone service. So basically, what 311 is it's a you call in any sort of like public blight or graffiti or pothole, something like that. You call into the city services line. You leave them. You call into the city services line. You tell them what the issue is, and they work to improve upon it. So, the other thing he talked about though was the standard of appearance program, and actually, the media. Us members in the media, we got handed a little booklet, which I'm sure is publicly available. But it's basically a plan to make New Bedford, as Mayor Mitchell said, the cleanest center city in New England. So there are a few components of this. Basically, it's, what he's calling on is for, it's a plan for city departments and even residents of New Bedford to work to make New Bedford a much more cleaner and thus presentable place, a place that, makes it more attractive for obviously businesses, tourism opportunities, things like that. So we're going to talk about that at the after this break, but we'll take a break now. 508-996-0500. That's how you can join us this evening. We'll also take your messages on the WBSM app. I'm going to take a quick break and we'll be back. This is South Coast Tonight. I'm Marcus Farrow.
Later.
Welcome back to South Coast Tonight. I'm Marcus Farrow, 508-996-0500. I was talking about Mayor Mitchell's State of the City address. By the way, we're going to, tomorrow, I just want to preview what we've got going on tomorrow. It's Friday night. Chris and I will be in studio. We're going to be joined by, at 7 o'clock, State Rep Chris Hendricks from New Bedford. He's going to talk about the MBTA lawsuit that happened, the MBTA lawsuit that the city has been, basically floating. It's a draft complaint against the MBTA for the land takings. We talked about that in the first hour. We had Chris Markey on last night to talk about it for the full hour, actually. Chris Markey did not pull any punches, for sure. We'll say that. He did not pull any punches. We're also asking you what your favorite Star Wars movie is, if you have one. We'll take some more messages on that, too. We've got quite a few throughout the program. But so we have him at 7. He's going to talk about that. He signed on to the letter, the statement with Rep Strauss, Rep Markey, and Rep Schmid. Rep Cabral did not sign on to that letter. basically, condemning the mayor's proposed lawsuit against the MBTA. So we'll talk with Chris Hendricks on tomorrow. Mayor Mitchell has his weekly segment with Tim Weisberg. I'm sure that'll be a topic of conversation when he's on with Tim. You'll definitely want to check that out on Wednesday, every Wednesday at 11. It's a can't miss. It's a can't miss. It's a must listen if you are following the goings on in the South Coast. So then Ian Abreu is going to join us at 8. City Councilor at Large Ian Abreu. He's going to call in. He's going to give us his thoughts. He wanted an opportunity. I actually asked him to come on, but he's eager to talk about what was covered in the State of the City address. And so we'll talk to Ian Abreu at 8 o'clock tomorrow. So you want to be here with Chris McCarthy and me on Friday. You'll want to listen to the program. And we've got some important people covering some important topics. I mean, everybody's important. You're all important. But I mean, politically important, right? So we'll talk more about that. 508-996-0500. What I wanted to talk about is this. Like I said, at the State of the City, I was handed a booklet, and he talked about it in the Mayor Mitchell talked about the contents of this booklet in the beginning of his speech, and not in the beginning, towards the middle of his speech, I would say. And it's the standard of appearance for the public realm in New Bedford. It's got a nice picture of City Hall, and you turn, it's got the picture of the Lighting the Way New Bedford logo on the parking garage on Elm Street. And so it's a plan. What he says is, and I typically do not read text verbatim on the air in a lot of cases. It's not something I like to do. But I think it's important to just encapsulate this with using the words that they used. So what they said was essentially, in cities, looks matter. Places are judged by their residents and visitors alike based on their appearance. From the basics of cleanliness and orderliness to the higher order of signals of cares and attentiveness, such as well-designed buildings, landscapes, and public art. The most successful cities, those that are desirable places to live, work, play, and ensure that their public realm is intentionally designed and cared for. They set a high standard of physical appeal that residents, business owners, and developers feel compelled to embrace. New Bedford seeks to be such a city, and the goal of this document is to lay out in concrete and specific terms our expectations for the level of cleanliness and orderliness for which the city government and residents will hold themselves mutually accountable. The standard of appearance detailed in this document is in service to an ambitious but achievable goal for New Bedford to be the cleanliest center city in New England. So what they're saying is they think they want New Bedford to be the cleanliest center city in New England. They think it can be done with with some work on behalf of the city departments and with also with residents as well. It's basically broken up into, I counted 6 or 7 components: streets and sidewalks, graffiti, playgrounds and beaches, gateways, buildings and grounds, general designs and principles for enhancement of the public realm, and resident responsibility. Right. So the first section, streets and sidewalks, they have a few goals here that they think that they'd like to meet. They want, they said the most heavily traveled streets and sidewalks in the city of New Bedford should have streets and lampposts painted black, not rusted, streets and signs mounted on lampposts where possible, parking meters in good repair and painted black, tree wells mulched, and trees free dangling limbs and suckers. They should not have graffiti, litter or debris, unnecessary fencing, unnecessary construction materials, e.g. barrels, cones, and signs, payphone and magazine kiosks, or overflowing trash receptacles. There's a few examples here that he says eyesores that need to be addressed. An unnecessary and confusing sign on Route 18. It's a to request green wait on. I actually don't know what the sign says. It's on Route 18. It has a picture of a guy on a bike. It says wait on. It says to request on green. It doesn't actually make any sense. It doesn't need to be there. There's no commercial signs on public utility poles, and it's somebody advocating for buying houses basically stapled to a pole. Trash in the streets, litter strewn in city-owned parking lots, requires frequent maintenance, sidewalk and gutter weeds, overgrowth, rusty old green Cobra light should be painted or replaced. And so he talks about, the downtown district. There should be the litter should be addressed systematically, quickly through a combination of enforcement removal. He said the New Bedford Historic District should have appropriate light fixtures, street signs with white with black lettering mounted on buildings and fences where possible, bluestone sidewalks, bluestone colored crosswalks, and driveway aprons. They said it should have appropriate street signs, black frame with a traditional blue sign mounted on the street, and New Bedford style or Washingtonian light fixtures. So they're talking about downtown districts, they mentioned specifically, the Buttonwood, Klasky, Foster Hill, and Acushnet Heights, the things that those should feature. Obviously, one of a big issue in any city is graffiti. They talk about graffiti being an act of, vandalism. And I think a pretty strong indictment here. The most corrosive signs of blight and disorder. It serves as a warning sign that danger may be lurking. That seems a little extreme. Although I guess people typically do associate graffiti oftentimes with some type of like gang affiliated activity. I think that is something that they actually do. I think that's something that they do actually. Yeah, they do. I think people do. I don't know that's necessarily always the correct position, but they do say it's almost always a graffiti perpetrator's goal is almost always to be able to admire his work long afterwards. So they need to. So they're saying basically, if people are allowed to graffiti things without any sort of permitting or permission from the city, something that's not part of like a public works beautification process, just somebody tagging something with graffiti. What they're saying is it almost, they said it basically, it's allowed to stand, this non-sanctioned graffiti, then people are going to graffiti stuff more because they know their work's going to stand there and, it's going to, whatever thing they want people to see, they're going to be able to see it for a while. So they need to be more aggressive with graffiti cleanup. They said, while DPI, the Department of Public Infrastructure, which is, of course, the public works sector of the city, said while they're responsible for removing graffiti, they said all city employees should be expected to bring instances of graffiti promptly to DPI's attention. Residents are strongly encouraged to do the same. So they're saying, of course, it's DPI's position to do the job, but they're also saying, I guess it seems like the way it reads is, it's a requirement, right? It's an expectation, right, of a city employee. If you not necessarily work for the DPI, let's say you work for the city auditor's office or something like that. You are if you were walking to work or driving to work and you see a graffiti tagged on the walls, or somewhere it's on the street or somewhere on a curb or on some type of public structure, they're expecting you to report that to DPI. So they're saying there needs to be a more aggressive crackdown effort on graffiti. The third is parks, playgrounds, and beaches. They're saying all cities and parks and beaches should have grass mowed to the recommended height, playground equipment in good repair, proper standard trash receptacles with appropriate baffles, covers, augmented during the summer season with plastic barrels as necessary, not open wire mesh barrels. Public parks, playgrounds, and beaches should not have graffiti, again, litter and debris, unnecessary fencing, signage, overflowing trash receptacles or obtrusive dumpsters, excessive weeds and planting beds, tree wells and curbing, private signage. So eyesores to be addressed. They show a shabby sign with a lockbox, mar an otherwise beautiful view on West Rodney French Boulevard. Kind of does. We should take a picture from that angle. Over time, dead and diseased trees should be removed. That's always a big issue, actually. We went through that in Fairhaven, right? We had this whole thing with, we have a under budgeted tree department with an elected tree warden position that we've been working on basically folding into the town, into the Department of Public Works, making it an appointed and not elected position, because there is a overabundance of trees that need to be overabundance. There's, a lot of dead trees that need to be taken care of. A lot of that is usually on the Public Works Department as well, but that's always a big issue. Litter should be picked up frequently. So they're talking about another section is gateways. So this is they identify a few gateways. So basically ways in which people enter the city of New Bedford, right? So JFK Boulevard, which is Route 18, obviously a major way in which people enter the city, either via like the bridge. If you're coming in from the Fairhaven side, you can go to Route 18, you can take an off-ramp through Route 18 or through 195, right? That's a major. Kempton Street and Route 140. Obviously, you come down to Kempton Street, there's Route 6 there, which is route, that makes sense as well. The New Bedford Fairhaven Bridge, we talked about this. What do you think it is? Is it the New Bedford Fairhaven Bridge or is it the Fairhaven Bridge? I always say Fairhaven Bridge. I live here. Like Sean Oliver said, now that I'm an elected official, I got to say the New Bedford Fairhaven Bridge. Technically, none of it's in Fairhaven. Not even technically. None of it is in Fairhaven, so it makes sense to call it the... It makes sense to... makes sense to call it the New Bedford Fairhaven Bridge, but I'm going to still call it the Fairhaven Bridge. Cogswell Street and Acushnet Ave, Cogswell Street. So you can basically get the gist of this. Brock Ave and Roost Street, where the Public Safety Center is. So what they're saying is, these need to be beautified. These need to be better taken care of. And he cites an example of Washington, D.C., where they have the section of George Washington Memorial Parkway in Washington, D.C. And what they said they have there is they have it's a spotless, free, and excessive sign clutter. It does look very nice. It's a Google Maps image of it. And then they show a section of Route 18 that looks less, the grass is less well kept. It looks... the grass is less well kept. It doesn't look as nice. I think it's sort of an unflattering angle. But they're saying basically if they can improve upon the conditions of this, they can if they can improve upon the conditions of this, they can actually, they said, making it look more like a section in Washington, D.C., Washington Memorial Parkway. It's an achievable goal. I think there probably has to be more, tree planting and better keeping of the grass. One of the things that strikes me about this is that a lot of this is under the purview of DPI, Department of Public Works, and they do a lot of great work in the city. I always say the public works departments in any town, having served as an elected official in a public works department in like Fairhaven, New Bedford, Dartmouth, wherever, they provide the most essential services that you expect from a local government organization. Obviously, public safety is important too, but the things that people expect from the municipal government is that their water will turn on, that their streets will be paved and well kept, and that there'll be snow removal when it gets snowy, especially here in New England. Although not lately because of global warming. But a lot of this has to do, I think, with I would imagine this would have to be coupled with some added budgetary considerations for the Department of Public Infrastructure, because they do great work over there. Right? They do great work at the DPI, but they are always under budgeted. Right? And their budget's always cut. Their budget's always cut. So I would imagine this would have to come with an increase in resources to the Department of Public Infrastructure. I remember last year the city council, because you always got to do those cut night things where people just cut a bunch of stuff to say they cut stuff and they save people money. But And they do that here in Fairhaven. They do it in every town. Oh, we got to cut things because we're saving you money, but you're really cutting services. I remember they had a major cut to the wastewater, budget last year. I'd imagine there'd have to be some conversations with the city council, though, on like, hey, listen, we need additional resources for this, that. We need to make this city look better. We need to make it look better, to make it a more attractive place for businesses and tourism and all of that. Because we've got the history and the scenery and the public assets for a nice tourism profile. But in some places, we don't necessarily have the look, and we got to improve upon that. And it's just increases, I think, the overall feeling about a place that you live. If it's cleaner, how do you feel when you clean your house? Right? If your house is a mess, it makes you uncomfortable. If you clean it, you feel a lot better. It's a much better space, and you feel a lot better about it, and you typically a lot more comfortable. You feel better about the place you live. And so I would imagine there has to be a conversation with the city council about adding more resources so that DPI, on top of the great work that they do, can take these extra responsibilities. I guess we'll see. 508-996-0500. I got to take a break. We'll be right back.
Listen to us live anywhere in the world on the WBSM app. One's on the left, the other on the right. But they're both ready to call it right down the middle. More of Marcus and Chris on South Coast Tonight, here on WBSM.
Well, welcome back to South Coast Tonight. 508-996-0500 is how you can get in the program. Good evening.
Good evening, Marcus.
How's it going?
It's going.
Good.
Let's give New Bedford a break and get a Fairhaven report. I heard that gentleman from earlier in the evening talk about a $27 fee to pay your water bill.
My guess is that's probably a charge from the third party company that.
Well, they got to get rid of that. They got to sharpen their pencils and tighten their belts on that one because that'll never fly.
Well, I wonder if. You wonder how many, what other options are available.
You get in your car and then you walk in town hall and you pay your bill.
That's the option. But I'm saying in terms of online, like say get rid of that service.
Absolutely, you don't need that thing. Let me ask you another question in the Fairhaven report, just to give New Bedford a break and Jon Mitchell and all the other people there. How about the override? What do you see happening with that? How does that look?
I don't know.
Deep breath, huh?
It's tough to say. Yeah, it's tough to say. I've seen signs. I've seen signs out there that say, basically vote against the 2.5 override.
Yeah, I know, and you don't know exactly what that.
No. So it's funny. Mm-hmm. I saw those. It says vote no on 2.5. Vote no on Prop 2.5 with multiple exclamation points, right? And I had talked about. I'm not saying this is necessarily because of me, but I think it is.
Yeah.
I'd said I don't know if that's actually for the against Prop 2.5 as a policy or against the vote on the override. But then I see more signs now that say vote against any and all overrides of Prop 2.5. So
that is a Fairhaven sign. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Years ago there was a gentleman that ran for school committee, and his political slogan was, "We want the best education for the least amount of money." And that is Fairhaven. I'm not saying only about education. I'm saying everything. They want the best for the least amount of money. It's traditional. Yeah. It's what works there, and that's what happens in Fairhaven. Sharpen your pencils, tighten your belts. I know you've lived there most of your life, but I think you're finally, coming to that realization as an adult. That sort of thing.
Oh, I remember that's what everybody wants all the time. They always people say Jimmy Carter lost on that Malay speech where he told people, "Hey, listen, we're going to really need to, we're going to really need to make some sacrifices
and
here.
Put on the cardigan sweater and all that."
Yeah. And people are like, "No, I want everything and I want it for free." That's essentially like Roosevelt warned against that. He said, we like Social Security, we like these things, we're going to do it bigger, better, and it won't cost you anything, right?
Yeah. The next question is on the firemen. Did I hear your selectmen say that they've got the extra positions and they funded in the budget and it won't be part of the
four positions that were originally hired, but they need a few more. So they need their staffing is they're at 6 per shift. They want 9 per shift. That's a compromise from 14, which they said is optimal level. They want 9 per shift, which is what they think is tenable. The 4 firefighters they hired will bring them to 7, plus pulling firefighters off of dispatch and either getting civilian or regionalizing dispatch.
So that will not be part of the override then,
It's
right?
not going to be part of the override.
That's
That's what they said. I believe that's the conclusion they drew. It will not be part of the override, but they do need it to add the additional firefighters to bring it to 9 per shift.
I think it makes a lot of sense. As I said before, even though I never lived there, I consider Fairhaven to be my second hometown. And if there was ever a fire in the center with those beautiful buildings that Henry Harrelson Rogers left you as his legacy, it would be terrible. So,
a lot of historic homes, too.
Oh, no, that too. But again, to me, when I walk into Fairhaven and I go into the center, to me that it's a unique place, and to lose that because you didn't have a fire department that was fully manned, I think would be a real tragedy, that sort of thing. Because and the high school, the castle as well, the castle on the hill, and everything. It's what's going to happen with the Rogers School.
I think that it should be. I'm unclear. I think it should be housing. I think all the other ideas are wishful thinking. I know a lot of people are resistant to housing, so they're trying to find ways in which they can think of it that are like different from housing. But I think ultimately it's going to be and should be housing. I can't say that to a certainty, but I just think it should be housing.
Well, again, I think of it as part of also too Rogers' legacy to the town, and it to me it should be kept as he bequeathed it to the town, looking the same and everything.
It should.
And if they did put housing in it,
but if they don't do anything, they got to knock it down.
Well, that's like slapping Henry Huddleston Rogers in the face.
I agree, but
that's terrible.
It is what it is. That hasn't been used in 10 years, so they can't let it sit and rot. So,
and the other thing I would think too is further down there, the old Atlas Tack. Again, I would look into some sort of maybe solar farm they could put there to power your downtown buildings. Put a big fence around with some arborvitaes or something, so you don't have to see it, and use that to power. In fact, I think I talked with you on the phone a while back about going down to Mont Lot there in the south end of New Bedford. I drove by there the other day just to refresh my memory how big that is. That's a pretty big lot, and they do have a fence around it right now. And I think New Bedford could do the same thing to supplement maybe some of the power used at Roosevelt, middle school, which is down the street there.
Right.
I think it'd be a good use of polluted land, whether it be the Atlas Tack in Fairhaven or that land there in New Bedford. But use solar as well as wind and stuff like that. Again, the Sullivan's Ledge is a great example of that in New Bedford. What else are you going to do with this polluted land?
Yeah, I know. That has been there for even longer. I mean, I remember breaking into Atlas Tack when I was like 13, when the building was still there.
I'm sure a lot of kids at Fairhaven did that.
Did. It was like the cool thing to do.
If Spooky lived in Fairhaven, he'd be doing that too, looking for ghosts and stuff like that.
Yeah, right.
Well, all right, I'll give you a little Fairhaven report there every so often. Take some of the heat off New Bedford, but that gentleman that called in about a $27 charge just to pay your bill online, yeesh, that's got to go. Sharpen those pencils and tighten those belts.
Appreciate the call. Thank you.
All right, my friend. Take care.
Going to take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. One more time for one quick call. Good evening. Hello.
Yeah, what's up?
Hey, you tell me.
I just figured I'd share a little Rocky Marciano with you.
What?
I figured I'd share a little Rocky Marciano with you.
Oh, what's that? What about him?
I was just going to put a clip of his fight on, one of his fights against Ezra Childs.
What?
Hold on a minute. I was going to put on a couple of clips of his fights from the first fight with Ezra Childs and the second fight with Ezra Childs. I think those were the toughest fights of his career, even though he never lost a fight.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Next. You're on the air, right?
Yeah, I'm on the air, man.
What's going on tonight, my friend?
A lot went on. We had the sheriff on. We had a few things going on. We had some good conversations.
And so what did he have to say about the riots and the prison?
There's going to be a media availability tomorrow in the wing of that was trashed. So I'm going to check it out. I'll let you know what I see. I'll take some pictures.
I got to put my own opinion in on that. I mean, I'm glad that Hodgkinson's out of there. Now, if Chris is there, he's going to go bananas, but I don't think he's there. But I think that Haru needs to get a little more aggressive. He's being too liberal. You got to remember something. These guys are not. I've heard stories of guys that have been in there recently. He's given prisoners high fives and stuff. That's not how that works.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty experienced in corrections. I think he has a good grasp on how it works, and I think the philosophy in which he's governing is the philosophy he campaigned on and the people voted for, and so that's how it's that's how it's going to go.
He needs to do, as the old movie said, walking. He needs to start walking tall.
Yeah, that is a movie.
That's based on a true story, but the movie's fictional from the real Buford Fossa. He's actually an interesting man to look into. Look him up sometime.
Sure.
Do some research. But no, I mean.
All right, hey man, I got to go. I appreciate the call. Right. Thank you. Good evening. You got like 10 seconds. All right, sorry. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Tune in. Chris Hendricks, Ian Abreu, and you guys. So tune in. I'll talk to you then. See ya.